On an ordinary day, surveillance footage at a Speedway gas station would reveal a disturbing secret hidden under the cold light of the cameras. The scene begins with a black truck speeding into the parking lot, as if carrying a dramatic weight. A man, dressed in a red sweater, jumps out of the truck, his furious expression revealing that something is very wrong. Meanwhile, a woman stands in the shadows to the left, her gaze nervous and hesitant. As the man approaches, a heated argument seems to arise between them, the atmosphere charged with tension. And then, in an act of defiance, the woman throws a soda at him, a gesture that could be interpreted as a struggle for dignity or a disguised cry for help. The recording continues to roll, and the atmosphere shifts when the man, in a grim move, pours something on the woman. The scene becomes increasingly alarming. The man, in a casual tone, claims he was just trying to light a cigarette for her, asserting that it was all an accident. But as he slowly walks away, an even darker truth is revealed. While the woman is consumed by the flames, he shows not a trace of surprise or fear. This woman, however, may not be the man's first victim in his red sweater. He has a history of deceit, manipulating circumstances, and escaping justice for years. Now, with the gravity of the situation, only she holds the key to stop him once and for all. But as the struggle for survival unfolds, her fate remains uncertain. No one knows if she will be able to win this battle, but what is clear is that the truth needs to come to light, and courage may be the only weapon she possesses. I received a phone call that turned my world upside down. "Are you the mother of Judy Malinowski?" The voice on the other end sounded distant, as if speaking through a tunnel. My first reaction was to think, what a strange question. Of course, I'm her mother. But at the same time, a chill began to spread in my stomach. Then the person continued, "We're calling from the hospital. We have your daughter here. You need to come now." In that instant, the ground seemed to crumble beneath my feet. It was August 2nd, 2015, a day that should have been like any other. Judy, at 31 years old, was at a Speedway gas station in Columbus, Ohio, enjoying a quiet afternoon with her boyfriend, Michael Slager. The sun was shining outside, and life seemed normal. Everything changed at 5 hours and 8 minutes when, in an act of pure malice, someone threw gasoline on her and set her on fire. Without understanding what was happening, Judy was rushed to the hospital, while her life was about to change forever. As soon as I arrived at the hospital, fear accompanied me with every step. The hallways were cold and impersonal, lit by bright lights that seemed to intensify with each passing second. A nurse, noticing my despair, tried to calm me down. "We're going to take her to the trauma area," she said, guiding me through the automatic doors. My heart raced in my chest, and my thoughts spun between hope and fear. "I have seen many people with burns like hers," the nurse commented in a heavy tone, almost as if she were preparing to deliver devastating news. "And usually, we can't save many of them." Those words cut like a knife into my heart. Judy was my firstborn, my joy, my best friend. The memories of happy moments flashed through my mind like a movie. Her laughter, her first day of school, the warm hugs. It was as if all of that had happened just yesterday. When I finally reached the trauma area, everything around me seemed like a blur. The smell of antiseptic and the hustle and bustle of the medical staff were intense. I didn't know what to expect. A nurse led me through revolving doors, each step more difficult than the last. The tension was palpable, like a thread about to snap. As I approached Judy's bed, a wave of tumultuous emotions hit me. My eyes filled with tears at the sight of her condition. Her skin was burned and covered with bandages, and the equipment around her emitted a constant buzzing sound, as if struggling to keep her alive. In that moment, I took an unexpected turn. I was so stunned that I got caught up in what was happening around me, unaware that what I would find would change my life forever. The image of my daughter, so full of life and dreams, now in a hospital bed, made me realize the fragility of life. I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for Judy, who had always been a fighter. And there, by her side, I promised that I would do everything in my power to fight alongside her. It was a day that should have been normal, but everything changed in an instant. I passed by Michael's room, feeling a growing concern in my heart. Something didn't feel right. The world seemed to spin slowly around me as I approached him. With a trembling voice I asked, "Michael, where is Judy? Where's Judy?" He looked at me, and his sad gaze sent a chill down my spine. It was an accident, he replied, in a tone that sounded like a distant echo. Those words hammered in my head like a bell, but I couldn't comprehend what was really happening. What did accident mean? My chest tightened with a bad feeling. As I entered the room, I saw many police officers gathered around Michael's bed. The scene was confusing and frightening, and my heart raced. Why were there so many police officers there? My mind was in a whirlwind of questions and concerns, but before I could find the words, an officer came over to me. He looked serious and firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you need to leave this area," he said, gently pulling me out of the room. It felt like waking up from a nightmare, but in reality, everything was just beginning. As I was guided away, my heart burned with anxiety. I just wanted to know about Judy. What had happened? Where was she? All I could think about was that I needed her by my side. After what felt like an eternity, I finally reached where Judy was, and upon seeing her, everything inside me collapsed. The sight that presented itself before me was simply devastating. My daughter, Judy Malinowski, at 31 years old, was lying in a hospital bed, and what I saw took my breath away. Her body was burned over 80%. Her skin was covered in bandages, and the visible pain on her face was unbearable for me. I could barely recognize her. Tears began to stream down my face, and the anguish turned into a deafening scream that echoed in my heart. "Please tell me there's hope. Tell me everything will be okay," I yelled, my voice trembling with despair. But the doctors just looked at me with expressions of sorrow. There were no words that could comfort my shattered heart. I just wanted to hear that my daughter was okay, that she would recover, but the answers didn't come. My heart broke at the sight of my daughter like that. Memories of happy moments together, shared laughter, and dreams we had for the future flooded my mind. I just wished I could go back in time and change everything. Despair enveloped me like a dark cloud. I couldn't accept that Judy's life, so full of promise and joy, was now threatened. Amidst the chaos, I made a silent promise. I would fight for my daughter, no matter the cost. And there, by her side, I vowed that I would not leave her alone in this battle. In every tear and in every sigh, there was a love that would transcend any pain. We have a formula that doctors use to assess the situation of a burn patient. This equation takes into account the age of the patient and the percentage of burns. In Judy's case, who was only 31 and had about 80% of her body burned, this resulted in an alarming estimated mortality rate of 110%. This meant that her chances of survival were extremely low, almost impossible. This information was a heavy weight on the shoulders of the medical team and everyone who loved her. While Judy was in a coma, fighting against the flames that devoured her skin and her life, a tragic scene unfolded just a few feet away. Michael Slager was sitting on a bed in a nearby room, his hands bandaged and full of burns, a painful reminder of what happened. The environment around him was filled with the sounds of machines and monitors, but despite the physical discomfort, it was his story that drew the most attention. When the police officers approached, Michael appeared nervous, but his voice was steady as he recounted what had happened. He said that it all began when Judy was filling the truck with gasoline. She was careless and ended up spilling some gasoline on herself, he said, trying to explain himself. His gaze was one of despair, as if he were trying to justify the unjustifiable. He continued, saying that upon seeing the situation, he offered to light a cigarette for her. But in a moment of horror, Judy caught fire. As he spoke, the police listened attentively, but there was tension in the air. Michael's narrative seemed to make everything sound like an accident, but the lack of Judy's perspective left many questions unanswered. How had he really gotten hurt? And why were so many police officers surrounding his room? The investigators, not understanding her version, looked at Michael with a mix of doubt and caution. He seemed to be an innocent man, but the events of that night were shrouded in mystery. The absence of Judy's voice made everything even more complicated, as if the truth were trapped in a silent scream that no one could hear. They needed her to understand what had really happened that tragic day. The uncertainty hung in the air, and Judy's struggle for life, in a deep coma, was at an impasse. Her story, her pain, and her desire for justice were now in the hands of fate and truth, anxiously waiting to unfold. We were very worried about Judy, and unfortunately, we couldn't find out anything about what happened. I just wanted Judy to be able to speak and tell her story as soon as possible. The doctors and nurses were around us, asking questions. One of them asked, "Do you want to wake this person from sedation?" Then, they lifted Judy's arm and began to talk to her. "Judy, can you hear me?" And she responded, "Yes." At the investigators' request, Judy was awakened from her artificial coma. This meant she would start to feel pain again. The nurse then asked, "Judy, are you feeling pain now?" She responded with a simple, "Okay." The detective was concerned and asked, "Would you mind if I asked you some questions about what happened?" A nurse whispered, "Stay calm, Judy. You are safe." I leaned close to her, trying to see if she could really hear me. "Judy, this is Detective Kahagan from Gehenna. Can you hear me?" She confirmed again, "Yes." Then the detective began to ask important questions. "Judy, did you spill gasoline on yourself?" She shook her head and replied, "No." The detective then asked again, "Did Mike spill gasoline on you?" She hesitated a little, but then said, "Yes. Yes." And Judy responded, "Okay." Judy nodded her head twice, demonstrating that she could hear and understand everything around her. With her answers, the police now have the information they need to continue the investigation. The police said they are going to arrest Michael. Someone comments, "What? I didn't understand." Judy replies, confused, "Yes, it seems he is really arrested now," says another person. "Why is he arrested?" Judy asks, worried. "He's going to be charged with doing very wrong things, such as assault and arson," they explain. Meanwhile, Michael Slager is about to discover a surprise. The police found very important evidence. You know that scene of what happened? It was recorded by a security camera near the location, and all the investigators have already seen the footage. This could change everything. Let me be very clear with you, Mike, okay? We saw everything that happened. We saw you pour gasoline on her head. Then, she fell to the ground and you leaned over and set her on fire. The scene was very clear. We know what happened, the officer continued. But that's not how it happened. Mike began to explain. We were arguing, and she threw a soda in my face. Then we started to fight. She went inside and even spat in my face. Then I thought, oh, you want to mess up my stuff? Then I'll give you an answer. It wasn't supposed to burn her or anything like that, you know? Okay, I understand, said the officer, listening attentively. I just wanted to ruin her clothes, that's all, Mike added, trying to justify his actions. Right, sure, replied the officer, sounding skeptical. So, we soon realized he was lying to us. Michael told several stories about how the gasoline got onto Judy. Then, he started to contradict himself. He said, okay, I did it, I panicked, I lied about everything, and I shouldn't have done it. She took off her sweatshirt and I didn't think there was still gasoline on it. Here's my lawyer, Michael said, trying to change the subject. Hi, how are you? The lawyer replied, with a smile. As far as the case goes, what I was really wondering was whether he did this on purpose, whether he really wanted to hurt Judy, the lawyer commented. But I still can't understand how someone could do this to another person, one of the people present said, shocked. While Michael was talking to his lawyer, the doctors were doing everything they could to save Judy. The sad truth is that often, people with burns like hers do not survive more than a few days. But month after month, Judy bravely fought for her life, going through many surgeries. She was unconscious, and her mother was anxious, not knowing if she would ever wake up. There wasn't anyone Judy didn't love, her mother said, with tears in her eyes. Judy's mother always said that all she really wanted was to have a simple life. She dreamed of having 2 children and sharing a house with a husband who loved her very much. When Judy turned 21, she became a mother, but she was still waiting to find that special husband. When I was little, I would look at my mom and want to grow up to be just like her. Judy told one day. She also talked about love. People can say, oh, I love you, but they don't always truly feel it. But with my mom, I always knew she really loved me. There was a difficult moment when they were waiting for news about Judy. It felt like a very sad game because they were basically waiting for Judy not to survive so they could charge Mr. Slager with something very serious. But one day, something incredible happened. They received a call saying that Judy had woken up. When Judy finally woke up from the coma, everything seemed confusing and scary to her. She didn't know what had happened since the fire. They had to explain that Mr. Slager was in jail. I remember how emotional she was about this. At that moment, Judy really felt sorry for Mike. While Judy was worried about Michael, she was also very scared of what he might do. But she didn't know that, for him, there was no feeling of guilt for what he had done or any concern for her well-being. Just 4 months earlier, in April 2015, Michael had sent Judy a message on Facebook, confessing his love for her. He said he had always had feelings for me and that he loved me, Judy recalled. Judy's mother thought, he seems to be a troubled person. And Judy replied, Mom, you can't judge a book by its cover. Her mother agreed, thinking, okay, I'll give it some time. Judy had met Michael through a group of friends, but she had no idea who he really was. He had a complicated past, with issues like theft, domestic fights, making threats, and even fabricating stories for the police. But then, he started to pamper her, sending messages full of sweet words, as if it were everything a girl would want to hear, especially during the difficult phase she was going through. One day she told me, Mom, I'm starting to get addicted to this pain medication. I replied, Judy, don't worry. Just take it as the doctor prescribed. But over time, I realized she was becoming dependent. She took the medication whenever she felt bad, self-medicating. In the months following her treatment, Judy began to struggle with addiction. She realized that her behavior was hurting her daughters. Being away from them made her sad, but she knew she needed to do the right thing. So, she decided to send her 2 daughters to live with their grandmother Bonnie while she checked into a rehabilitation center called Parkside. Judy was determined to recover for the sake of the girls, and soon she managed to stay sober again. She was going to many meetings, like 3, 4, or even 5 a week. The people there helped her stay on the right path, and soon she was living with her daughters again. She was doing better than ever. But everything began to go downhill when Michael showed up again. That's when drugs returned to her life. He started buying drugs for her, and that's how Judy relapsed. Michael was back in control of her again. I don't think Michael ever used drugs, but he definitely hurt women who were struggling with addiction, commented one person, concerned. In the months that followed, Judy began to see who Michael Slager really was. He started hurting her in very ugly ways, and even when she tried to escape and leave him, Michael always found a way to bring her back. Judy once called me very scared because he had choked her. I remember how afraid she was of him. She even hid in hotels and left home to stay away. Judy called the police several times, telling them he was hitting her. But what Judy didn't know was that Michael also called the police whenever something happened, making it seem like he was a concerned boyfriend. He was very clever and knew exactly what he was doing. Near the end of May 2015, I had a long conversation with Judy. She became very serious and told me that if she tried to leave him or if he found out about our conversation, he could kill her. And then, the call dropped, as if everything had suddenly come to an end. It was spring of 2016 when Judy woke up in the hospital. Finally, after everything that had happened, her daughters and her siblings were able to see her. They knew they would be very shocked. When I walked into the room, I thought, "This isn't my mom." "It was hard to believe that this person was my mother," said one of the daughters. Grandmother Bonnie was very happy because her daughter had finally woken up, but Judy's struggle was about to get even harder. In December 2016, the trial began. Now that Judy was alive, Michael was only being charged with arson and assault. Even so, he still claimed that everything was an accident. Judy knew that there was more going on, but the defense argued that she couldn't speak in court due to her condition, so they said Michael was innocent. Without Judy's voice, it seemed like Michael could escape justice. But then, Judy's health improved. She really wanted to tell her story. "I think she just wanted someone to really listen to her," said a family member. This could be Judy's only chance to testify. If she managed to get well and survive, Michael would escape being charged with homicide. But if something happened and Judy didn't survive, he would be charged with homicide, and what she had to say would be used as evidence against him. But then, something unexpected happened. Michael Slager, who always claimed to be innocent, decided to change his plea. He now requested to plead no contest, which means he was not defending himself but also not admitting guilt. "Okay, Your Honor," he said, and with that, he avoided a trial. This meant that Judy wouldn't be able to tell her story in court. He silenced her again. There was nothing we could do. And now, what to do? The woman from Gahanna who was doused in gasoline and set on fire would never have the chance to defend herself against her ex-boyfriend. The judge sentenced him to 11 years in prison. The maximum sentence Michael could receive for doing this to Judy was the same as someone would receive for burning a car. This is so unfair. Meanwhile, Judy was trapped in her own struggle, living with a life sentence against her will, and her children were also suffering because of the violence she faced. Domestic violence is very ugly and cruel. Mrs. Bose was right to say, "This girl has a life sentence, and you did this without remorse. You did so many things that show how bad you are. You seem like one of those people who have no heart and need to stay away from society. That's all I have to say. Get him out of here." More than a year has passed since the attack, and Judy still fights every day to stay alive. Michael's sentence was a big surprise to her, as Judy doesn't feel she received the justice she deserved. Even when it seems very difficult, the only thing that keeps her strong are her daughters. A part of her wanted to live and fight for all the other women who have gone through similar situations. She was willing to do whatever it took to help change the laws, said someone who knows her well. The new law, called the Judy Law, aims to increase the maximum sentence for anyone who intentionally disfigures someone by up to 20 years. This law is a tribute to Judy Malinowski, who is still fighting to live after being set on fire a year and a half ago. Although the law cannot help her case, Judy continues to fight for others who have also faced domestic violence. The doctors are surprised because they cannot understand how she is still alive. But Judy's mother, Bonnie Bose, believes that Judy is fighting with all her strength to see the Judy Law become a reality. All Judy has ever wanted was to help people. She fought hard for justice and for those in need. It's a true miracle that she has managed to survive, with her heart full of courage and a desire to help others. But I feel like her body is getting tired and can't take it anymore. As Judy continues to lie in bed, the doctors realize that she probably won't live much longer. They are doing everything they can to ensure she feels the least amount of pain. Judy's mother, Bonnie, is always by her side, but letting her daughter go will be the hardest thing she has ever faced. Even if they don't give her much time, and if God takes her, she will always be with us, said Bonnie, with a sad but loving look. With the possibility of a murder trial approaching, the prosecutors come to see Judy and her mother Bonnie with an idea. And that's how they asked Judy to testify about her own death. This was something quite unusual because it had never happened before. No one in the United States had ever spoken about their own death in a trial. But there was one condition. For Judy to speak clearly, she would need to stop taking the pain medication. As a mother, you know your child. Would she be able to do this, even if she wanted it very much? Someone asked. Judy Malinowski will be able to tell her own story in the trial of the man who hurt her. This case made headlines across the country. This will be the first time a person can testify from beyond in a murder trial, said another person, excited. Judy then said, "Mom, I know I didn't endure all this pain in vain." She seemed tired of fighting and was in a lot of pain, but she didn't say to me, "Mom, I want to give up, I want to stop." She knew that would make me very sad. After undergoing nearly 60 surgeries and spending 2 years in the hospital, Judy was transferred to a place where she only received care, no longer medical treatments. Her mother, Bonnie, was very worried and said in an interview that Judy's body couldn't take it anymore. "So they asked me to sign some papers saying it was time to let Judy go," Bonnie recounted. "But I said no, I'm not going to sign those papers." Judy, for her part, said, "Mom, I will." And she made an X instead of writing her name, which would normally be a J. I realized she was determined. So, I said, "Okay, Judy. I will hold your hand until Jesus takes the other." Judy Malinowski passed away on June 27, 2017, after fighting for nearly 700 days. She left behind 2 young daughters, her siblings, and her mother. "This is just the beginning of a new fight for justice for our family," someone said. The Los Angeles prosecutor, Ron O'Brien, stated that this case is something never seen before. Now, Michael Slager faces 2 charges of murder and 2 of manslaughter. If he is found guilty, he could even receive the death penalty, the prosecutor said. As Michael Slager prepares for his trial, he does not intend to plead guilty this time. His lawyers are doing everything they can to prevent Judy from telling her story in court. They want to silence Judy's voice again. "We will fight hard to keep what the victim said out of any trial with the jury," said the lawyers. Judy's mother, Bonnie, was very angry. If what Judy said is not accepted in the trial, all the pain she endured to tell the truth will have been in vain. "She left believing she did justice and told her story," Bonnie said, sadly. Now, Michael's lawyer claims that the entire process is wrong and should not be happening. At this moment, only a judge can decide whether Judy will be heard or not. The defendant's right to confront their accuser is very important. But, in this case, Michael had the chance to confront Judy. Thank you, God. Today is a very special day and could be historic. The judge has decided that Judy will be the first murder victim in the state to testify against her murderer. This brings new hope to her family, as they now believe that not only will justice be served for her death, but Judy's voice will also be heard in court. On July 5, 2018, the court is set to hear Judy for 3 hours. Her mother, Bonnie, and her daughters, Kaylin and Madison, are there, all very anxious. No one has seen the testimony before, as it was filmed behind closed doors. Everyone wants to hear Judy tell her story. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that everything you are about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Asked the judge. How will you answer to God or if you are caught lying? Judy shared her side of the story, but her struggle is not over yet. Now comes the hard part. The defense will cross-examine her. This means they will do everything to make it seem like Judy is not credible. They talk about her past, her addiction, and question her decisions. But with every question, Judy stands firm and fights to defend herself. However, as time goes on, she begins to grow weaker. I just remember leaving thinking, this was so bad. This was so bad. I didn't want to do this. From day one, I felt sorry for her. I really felt sorry. Judy went through 3 hours of very tough questioning. I couldn't go in, I couldn't knock on the door and see how she was, and when I finally entered, she grabbed me with all her strength and her burned body was trembling. The question that remains is, will what she said be enough to bring justice for Judy? The prosecutors and her family are fighting for Michael to receive the death penalty. He has shown no remorse and acted coldly, as if he didn't care. Since everything happened, the only thing he cares about is protecting himself. But before the trial ends, the court will hear one more video from Judy, which could be very important in deciding Michael's punishment. She didn't believe in the death penalty. And even though I think Michael Slager deserves to be punished for what he did, I feel that Judy had the right to tell the judge what punishment she wanted. Judy decided she was not going to seek revenge. She showed everyone that, even after everything that happened, she was nothing like Michael and fought for what she believed in until the very last moment. "Sir, how do you plead?" asked the judge. "Guilty," Michael replied. "And regarding the charge of aggravated murder, do you plead guilty?" "Guilty." "Do you understand that this means you are admitting that you did this?" "Yes, Your Honor." "You will spend the rest of your life in prison." Judy got what she wanted. Michael avoided the death penalty, but now he will spend his whole life in prison. "I am so proud of her and I know I will see her again one day," said someone, emotional. Judy Malinowski fought until the end to achieve justice not only for herself but also for all the other people who suffered like she did. She made her mother proud and also inspired her daughters. "My mom taught me that you can stand up to anyone," said one of them, filled with determination. It was an emotional day at the State House, where two girls stated that they would continue their mother's fight. Kaylin and Madison, Judy's daughters, are determined to do everything they can to help pass the Judy Law. A brave young woman spoke up for her mother. Kaylin Malinowski addressed an important group in the Senate. "Hello, Mr. President and members of the Senate. My name is Kaylin Malinowski and I am Judy's daughter. Please approve my mother's law, because together we can prevent other families from going through what ours did. If the law is passed, Judy's memory will live on forever through it. We know our mother did not suffer in vain. The goal of the law is to increase the sentence by 6 years for people who use dangerous items, such as gasoline, to harm others, just like what happened to Judy. I think this is a big step to honor her legacy," someone said. "Everyone in the House, get ready and let's vote." And at the end of the day, all the representatives said yes. Now that the law has been passed in honor of their mother, Kaylin and Madison are finding new ways to help other survivors of domestic violence. "She was so brave," they said, filled with pride.